Hey, what's going on? Today, you are in for something special. Today, I'm going to share with you a very great episode, something I'm very excited about. Reason why, because this episode will be the first in a series called Client Success Stories, or at least until I come up with a different name. But the idea is I wanted to interview clients to hear about their journey, to hear what it's been like to live the red velvet life from their end, from their words. Because I can tell you my perspective, but there's something different to hear from someone who recently lived and went through it, to listen to it from someone who's overcome their fears, their insecurities, that has done the healing, that has done the work. And in doing that, my goal is to have you to see that number one, you're not alone. The things that you're going through, other guys go through as well. And more importantly, number two is that there is a way over it, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that you too can have success. Now, these interviews, again, I'm gonna sprinkle them in here and now and then, but what I want you to do, more importantly, is I want you to really listen to how they did things and really more of the mentality and the approach and the ways of being that they did as they were going through these episodes, which I'm sure you're going to love, and because in that, it is the secret. And so, with that said, I want to introduce my first one. My first one, his name is Sapan. He is one of the first OG Red Velvet guys, and his story is beautiful. So, if you're the type of guy that you are always in your head, stuck with perfectionism, deal with a little bit of anxiousness, and you want to get to the point where you're living your passion, where you're that guy that you see in your head, if that's you, if that's something you can resonate with and something you want to know more about, then stick around because we're gonna get into it. Now, real quick, before we jump into it, a heads up. Now, this interview ended up being 4 hours long, and we just got lost in the conversation, but I was asking question after question to get into the nitty gritty of how he did it, of how he became great. And so I've managed to cut up some pieces, and I've broken this up into two chapters or into two episodes. That way it's easier to digest. The chapter we're about to get into is what I call chapter one or volume one or episode one of this particular episode. So I want you to sit back, enjoy, take notes, and with that said, let's get into it. Boom, baby. Welcome back to the Red Pill. See, now I gotta start over. You know what? Fuck it. We're gonna keep it rolling, all right? Because imperfection is beautiful. We rock it. Welcome to the Red Velvet Podcast. What's up, beautiful people? What's going on? It's so lovely to have you here. I'm your host, Pablo J. Rosario, and today we are going to do something very, very important. Something that I've been excited to do for a very long time. Today we have a special guest. Today we are going to interview one of the original Red Velvet members. So this is your first time hopping on, or if you don't know too much about it, I do run a men's group called Red Velvet Group. These are my all stars. These are my guys. These are the ones that I look after. This is a group of gentlemen that they are not only awesome men, beautiful men, but at the same time, they are a great community of guys that are looking just to become better in every aspect of their lives. Of course, they want to become better at connecting with their ladies and meeting wonderful ladies. But the thing that makes them awesome is the fact that they are looking to to break the limiting beliefs and chains that hold them back from being the best version of themselves. And so, some of the guys, they've been in there since this thing originally started, which was what, maybe 4 years ago, maybe something like that. Something like that, 4, maybe 5 years ago. It's been a while, I don't know. But also, the reason why I'm also excited is because, like, this is exciting for me is that I get to see their progress and I get to see them develop into the man that I saw when I first met them. And I'm really excited because you're about to meet one of these gentlemen. And this gentleman I'm about to present to you, I mean, I could come up with a fantastic introduction. I could say that he is, with no shame, say, surpass me at the ability to plan amazing dates. I could say that, yes, he is super successful in his field. And I could say, though, he's also a DJ on the side, which, by the way, he mastered in record time. I could say all that, but what I will say is I want to introduce you to a beautiful human being. And this person's story, I want to have him on because his story is one thing we all can relate to. The one where I think for men, I think the biggest battle that we face is the one in our heads. And that it's a constant battle between our potential that we feel inside and also the fact that we're not reaching it and the effects that it has on it. And so the person I'm about to introduce to you, I mean, this person has done that battle, has overcome, has gone to the other side, and continues to conquer a new mountain almost every year. And on top of that, what sticks out is this person's ability to implement, to take the teachings into his own hands. And so if I had to say anything, let me cut him off before he says anything. His growth has not, I have nothing to do with his growth. All I've done is just point in direction, and he's gone sprinting. And so, with that said, without further ado, I want you to give it up for my man, DJ no, DJ Dreams. I call him Don Sueños. It's a little inside thing here. But ladies and gentlemen,
Hey,
welcome to the chat. Welcome to everybody to the podcast. Sapan. Hey, Sapan, what's up?
wow, what an intro. What an intro. Yeah, DJ Don Sueños was the original, and that was DJ Dream Secure Shakur. So we
I
got
love
multiple.
that. I love that. And also, and where did DJ Dreams come from?
My name means dreams. So
Oh,
my parents named me that's what they named me. So Sueños is dreams and then Dream Shakur. So I just took like my first name and my last name and combined them. So
and I love it. And you know what? Right, I love that name is because um, well, first off, last name Shakur, and then there's Tupac, we're from California, and
yeah.
so there's that right there. And then, but the other reason as well is because I mean, everybody like I think first off, like claiming your name that way, I think it just adds power. It adds power and self-esteem to oneself that my name means something. I'm not, it's just not like, oh, I'm just Bob. Like, nah, like my name means something. And so I think it's a fantastic thing, a fantastic thing. So where shall we start? So, well, first off, talk to the people. Just introduce them. Tell them a little bit about yourself. Like put people on.
So I'll tell like a generalized story. So I come from Cerritos area, which is like a suburb out of Long Beach, California. So I grew up a kid in the 90s, grew up in the 80s, but basically the 90s. So like you said, Tupac Shakur, like all the hip hop really influenced my style. So coming of age, as an immigrant kid is trying to find your identity within American society. So you had things at home and then you had what you wanted to be or your vision of what you wanted to be outside. And the clashing of the two worlds was always something that was a part of my journey. And so working my way all the way up through that and then kind of going through school and trying to fit in, that was some of the difficult part and trying to figure out how to date and my transformation and all that. So as a kid, I was working on just watching TV and watching movies, and I would take things from movies and create an imagination in my head. And that's what created kind of the vision that I am today.
Oh, that is awesome. What were some of your inspirations?
Uh, I love sports. So obviously, I wore the Mamba for you, but so basketball was like the first love when I was 5 to 6 years old. That was the first love. My first trading cards and loving basketball was the biggest thing. And then I loved songs and hip hop, and so those two things always control my life, and they still do. I mean, I love sports and basketball and music plays a role. So those two things always really helped.
Yeah, no, and also you are a 49ers fan. I mean, this year you
Yeah,
so
too
close,
early,
so
man.
close.
It's too
So
early.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm sorry, but you know what? The script, the NFL script, just they didn't have it in the plans. It
No,
was, we got Taylor Swift now in the mix, of course, so we need camera time. So you gotta understand. So maybe next year. So don't be too mad.
that's true.
Yeah, don't be too mad. By the way, all right, if you're watching on YouTube, obviously you can see my man's style, chef's kiss. And if you can, if you're listening to it, let me paint a picture for you of this gorgeous man here. All right.
Place you go.
All right, I'm talking about a nice full strong beard. All right, he has a nice fade going on with a well-fitted gray blazer jacket, and underneath though, right, he's not still stuck up. Like you said, like music is very much, and music and sports is very much your inspiration. So he has a 1996 Kobe T-shirt right under with a silver chain. Loving it,
I
loving
draft.
it. Loving it. That's what I'm talking right there. And that's just an example of what we do here in Redville. And I love it. I love it. No, but the first one thing I want to get into is just your upbringing. Because you mentioned, coming up as an immigrant kid and coming up and, trying to find your way and trying to find who you are. Tell me a little bit more about that, about finding your place, and also how did that affect you in your dating life and also yourself, like your identity?
So my parents were like strict, and so they come from a disciplined background. They focused on education, so all the stuff that we're working on in terms of lifestyle was basically pushed to the side. It was like really just study, 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 and more study. They didn't want me to kind of focus on. They had me in sports, but they didn't want me to focus much on sports. It was more like education is their religion and became our religion. That was really put into place. So everything else was kind of put to the side.
Mhm.
But like for me, it was a clash from what was inside because inside I'm more, I would say more artsy, creative, a little bit of a mixture. So I had the science background from my parents, but then also this other background that was bubbling up for me inside, but it was never like really tapped into. And
Mhm.
so they they really installed like that work ethic and all the things that made me successful. But I think these things were not really focused on, but this is what I love to do with my spare time. And so it was just kind of a blending of those two things. And like I said, even the worlds, I had to some people will say code switch. So at home, you have to kind of act one way or have an identity there. And then outside, you would have a different identity. So even like the way I speak and the way I carried myself, everything was a little bit different at home. So
Mhm.
it was bridging between those two identities. And so sometimes a lot of times, just because the way my parents bought my clothes too, so the immigrant, they had like no style basically. So so even the way I looked was different from how I felt inside, and there was always a little bit discrepancy there. So in some ways, I had like an identity crisis even early on because I was
Yeah.
trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And because of like their upbringing and probably because of my introverted personality, I think I developed like a shyness. I was quiet. I was withdrawn. I was a lot of times in my head, and so I feel like much of the interactions were in my head as well, or learning from like the TV. So the TV kind of became my biggest friend because it taught me so much, and I can have like a carefree conversation, quote unquote, with it, even though it's like imaginary friend, I guess. But I learned so much from it. So I was just tagging all that stuff for the time that I needed later on, which is now.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, because I was just going to ask, well, I was going to ask, like, how was like that? How was it like? How did it affect you growing up, being that like on with your house at home, they were strict and they were very much into academics, whereas on the outside you had all these creative passions and desires, and you mentioned that growing up you were a shy, introverted kid. So like, what was it like? What was like childhood, teenage something like?
um, it was different stages. I think a lot of times it was taking what was inside me, and I started popping out in bits and pieces. Like there would be times in like a math class in my sophomore junior year. People would riff and everything, and so I would be the kid who had glasses on and like ill-fitting shirts, but like I would say something funny, and then people would laugh, and so that's when I knew, okay, I got a little bit, and but I would go back into my shell, so it'd be like I throw some stuff out and then go back in my shell, or those things would it'd come in little bits. Um, but I think the transition changed kind of later, second half of my high school years when I got contacts. My parents blessed me with those. Like I had these big thick glasses and Coke bottle glasses, so nobody could see my eyes. And I remember in like I think it was ninth or 10th grade, there was a girl in my math class. And so for some reason, I just like took off my glasses real quick. And she was like, oh my gosh. She didn't like, didn't, I guess it was different for her. She didn't expect me to look like that. So she's like, I want to give you a makeover right away. And I said, really? And so her and some other girls wanted to give me a makeover. And even at that point, when a girl was willing to give me a makeover, give me like all the clothes, I still was like, I don't want to do it because I was afraid to change at that time. So it was difficult, but like that still pains me. I still remember her name to this day. It still pains me that like I didn't take that chance.
Yeah.
So that's biggest one of my biggest regrets. But I think I was just so much in my comfort zone and so much in my head that like I really couldn't take that risk, or that just felt like a little bit tough. So
Yeah, but that's so interesting because then you said like there was a part of you that wanted to be expressive like that.
oh yeah. yeah. So it's just I didn't know how to do it. And I always was in my head about how people would perceive me because the outside doesn't look like what I felt on the inside. So I felt like I had to get the outside adjusted to kind of make it match the inside. And so towards the end, once I got context, then I started picking up style a little bit. The outside started coming. I got more comfortable in my skin. And then that's what changed it a little bit. And it was multiple iterations leading from high school to college, baggy pants, or should I talk like this, or should I walk like this?
Yeah.
Or how do I present with the girls? Should I be like super smooth and suave? And
Yeah.
nothing really seemed to fit. So it was like a lot of from high school to college, even I think I got comfortable at like 22, 23 with being myself as I got more interactions. But like that whole time, was just difficult. It was just
Yeah.
difficult. But
Yeah.
I knew there was something inside. I just didn't know how to link it all together. And I didn't have role models at home either. My dad was super smart and he's charismatic and he's funny, but like he didn't show me a blueprint in terms of like how to navigate life in the United States. I had to kind of make that my own,
Hmm.
So I didn't have a big brother. I had a sister. She kept me in line in some ways, but I didn't have like a role model like that, and my friends didn't know anything. So
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, yeah. No, I can totally relate to that. I can totally relate because I'm the oldest, so kind of like the first boy sort of situation. And my parents are immigrants as well, and my dad, cool, charismatic, but again, like from a different world. It's like, he really as that during that time as far as growing up, life as a first generation kid here in the United States. Again, I'm right there with you where I didn't have that guidance as well. And I was in my head, like I felt like, hey, I wanted to express myself, but I was nervous too. Like I would think about it and make jokes and things like that. And for me, I had glasses as well, but I played sports. And so, but my glasses would always break. So not only did I have glasses, but they were crooked and they had tape on it. Not even the white, classic white tape, it was clear tape. All right. It was clear Scotch tape, and it was that horrible. And just for me, the game changed the minute I got contacts. And my parents, luckily, they gave in to me. I got color contacts because I was sick of being that guy with glasses. Like, fuck this, I want to be the pretty boy now. And I got color contacts. And after a while, I was like, all right, this isn't me. Let me just get regular contacts. But then after that, boom, it was a game changer for that. So let me ask you this though: what was it like for Sup in terms of dating and meeting and girls and that back then? What was that like?
Non-existent, man. Basically, like even in college, it was in college. I didn't even have a car. I didn't have a cell phone,
Mm-hmm.
so it was like meeting people, but I couldn't even take them out. So it was just frustrating the whole time. And then there'd be girls I like or I talk to, and then we either go kind of in be friends, or I would be afraid to take like the shot because I was like it was like a lot of fear of rejection.
Yeah.
So there's even times where girls were interested in me, and then I'd be like, oh, I don't know, and just even being scared with that. So it was up and down. I mean, I had dates and things like that, but it wasn't that great. It wasn't the party experience that I thought it'd be. So I was just staying in my comfort zone. I think that's safety was the major key for me at that time. And so it was like this doesn't seem safe, or I don't really know what's going on, or this seems like too much risk, or if like I get pie on my face, that was more important for me to like stay safe than to take that risk. So it
Ah,
was there was girls here and there. There's girls like that one in high school that showed interest, and then I didn't really take a lot of shots. So I
ah,
took the safe shots, but I didn't take the ones that I really liked.
yeah, the person that you really wanted. So you ended up settling.
Yeah, I ended up settling.
Ah, yup, 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 yup. And so the thing you were afraid of was pie on your face, just it going wrong, huh?
Hmm. Yeah, because again, I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't feel like I had I guess, identity or the confidence or the swag or whatever you call it to execute. And
Mhm.
also, I didn't have the means. Obviously, like without a car, it's in LA. It's pretty much a wrap. So, like, what
Yeah.
we gonna do? Take the bus? So it was just more
Yeah,
like
exactly.
whoever's in the area, but or meet someone at a party. But it was pretty much it was not good.
Yeah, Uber wasn't around back then.
No,
Yeah,
no. I'm
you
jealous of
know,
you kids now.
nah, man, it's not sexy to be like, yo, my mom's gonna pick us up. Yeah,
Yeah.
that ain't it right there. I love it. I love it. So, so fast forward, fast forward, you do stuff and everything. A couple years go by, and then dun, 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 our paths meet.
Mhm.
All right. I'll let you tell the story. How we came about, what came to me from your perspective.
Well, so I was a big fan of Neil. So at that time when I was struggling, I picked up all the books like probably almost everyone does. Like I had like a seduction book. And I picked up his book. Basically, I just typed up on New York Times bestsellers, and I was just looking at it in like 2000. This was 2004, 2005, 2006 when it came out. So I read it, and I was like, "Well, this is cool. Like this is different." I could see myself in the story in terms of the way um, he didn't look that, he looked like me, I guess you could say. He wasn't
Yeah,
all put together. I don't want to say anything bad, but he wasn't all put together. And then his evolution and the things that he did and the strategies that he laid out was like a playbook for me. And
yeah,
so I always had him in the back of my head. And so I started following him on Instagram, and he had these I guess these conferences. And so I was watching and I was curious. And so I joined a place called Society, which you were in and you ran beautifully. So I met you at the first day I met you. I remember it was in Santa Monica. It was like at the Marriott, I think,
yeah.
over there. And I think you were wearing red, but I think you were wearing like a red suit. But I remember the first time I saw you, I said, wow, this guy is like so well put together. Like everything was tailored correctly, and just the way you carried yourself and the charisma you had and the energy you had. And you always made a point to like look everyone in the eye and remember their name. And so like it stayed with me. And I remember the second day of the conference, I had like a Jordan shirt on, and you had commented on like, "Oh, that's dope. I like Michael Jordan. I like your style." Or I had like a couple other things. So we just bonded on that. And
Mhm.
so, you know, there was like two or three other conferences, and then we had met. And I remember actually the last day that you were there, you did a performance in the middle of all of us. You had like a hat on, and I remember you did like a performance, and I saw you, and I was like, wow, his display of excellence in this crowd, and just how he was able to carry a crowd is something that I felt like I had parts in me or some tendency. And I said, wow, this guy's a super extrovert and he's very charismatic. And so like I could learn something from him. And he actually is giving me a path for learning from him. You had like a section where you were working on dating, and at that point when I joined, I was out of a relationship, so it was more of like inner healing. I wasn't really into dating, but I kept you in mind, and I worked for like a year, 6 months to a year. I just wanted to work on kind of inner game stuff, in my feelings, inner child. And then it came to dating. So I followed you on Instagram, and I saw that like you were on there and you're like men's dating relationship coach. So I sent you a message on Instagram, and at that time it was, I think, during COVID,
Mhm, I
like
remember. Yeah.
uh, mid to late to 2020. So we were in a weird stage in LA. Everything was locked down. Some of the places in Midwest it was open. So most of my dates consisted of Zoom like this. And I was struck for ideas. I mean, you really had to put out your best self on Zoom. You couldn't really pull out all the stops. So before I could take them on a date and do all this stuff, and now I had to like interact. So I had reached out to you and I said, like, give me some dating ideas. And you gave me like a full synopsis. I expected like 2 lines. You gave me a full synopsis, like a 4-part epic date strategy. Like you could do a paint and sip night. You can send her something over, oh, like you could send her a package or something, creative things. And I said, wow, this is really cool. And then later on, I think you had done like a seminar, like a 2 or 3 day seminar where you just basically broke down um, the game in the way you did. It was like a remix of what Neil did, but
Mhm.
and there's something that I remember in terms of attraction, of how now you know a girl likes you, which I didn't know. Like back then, I didn't have like a science to it. It was called Hot Ape, HOTAPE. And so just little things like that that you had taught really stuck out. And I said, like, I gotta link up this with this guy. And I had decent results, you know. I would go on dates and it'd be okay. I could get like first and second date, but I just didn't have that like connection. And I was still at this time I could communicate. I take an improv and I could entertain, but there's still like there's still parts of me that still wasn't fully fleshed out and developed. And there was things from back in our my day that I'd said when I was younger that I felt like I could be in terms of potential, and that's where I didn't feel like I was there. And I felt like you had characteristics or traits and was a role model for me for like one of the first times that I could say someone in my age group that could give me tools that I can execute. And I was right. You did.
Oh no, thank you. Listen, no, what a story, man. That's definitely a journey. I do remember meeting you in Santa Monica. I do. Chances are I was wearing the red velvet jacket, which inspired the podcast, Red Velvet, podcast and everything. And I know I do remember. It's funny. I have this. I just making efforts. I know when people are coming in, they don't know anybody, so I'm like, oh, let me make friends, talk, make them feel comfortable. And I do remember you coming in too. And I remember one of the things was that, to help you get out of your shell more, I remember Neil giving you the exercise of preparing a 5 minute speech,
Mm-hmm.
preparing a 5 minute speech to start at the next event. And it was my job to keep you accountable to that, keep you accountable to your word. And I remember doing it, and I remember keeping it. And it's funny because remember you actually told me something in that moment. Like I remember later on we talked, and you told me, Pablo, I really appreciated you following up. Like, that really stood out to me, and keeping me accountable and keeping to your word. And the reason why it stood out to me because in the moment, like when I did it, I didn't think anything of it. It was like, okay, I'm just going to remind him, help him if he needs it, get him set up. And but what it taught me was that the the things that are little that you don't think anything of could mean something big to someone else. To downplay it and to not think you're not having an effect on people. And so that's what reminded me, like, wow, like even the littlest things that you do can really stand out to somebody. So that's what I definitely remember. And I remember you being tall too. I mean, you're taller than me, and I just remember like, huh, this guy's tall. I looked up, I was like, oh, this guy's tall. That's what I remember. That's what I remember. Well, I remember you're definitely dressing different from where you are, from the way you are now. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's like right now, like you're definitely more expressive. But back then, I do remember there being like hinting glimmers of a little bit of sauce, a little bit of salsa in there too. But I want to ask you
Yeah.
something. So you're talking about like your dating situation before. So before, that time when you joined Neo and that time when well, first I want to talk 2 points. I mean, first I want to talk about, you mentioned like there was a situation or relationship that had you looking for help with Neil and looking for books on how to change your dating life. Would you mind telling like what was going on and what made you want to start to look for advice?
Yeah, I felt like well, so I was with this girl for 2, 3 years on and off. And so I felt like I was with her, it was good, but it wasn't great. And there's a lot of inner game things that came up, or there's just a lot of inner turmoil things that came up to the point where I started working on myself. I started working, going to therapy and things, and she had a lot of quote unquote complaints. Some agree, some I didn't agree, but I took it to heart and I said, okay, let me work on myself. So a lot of things that I had difficulty in terms of just expressing myself, communicating my needs, like even understanding what my needs were, understanding like what boundaries are, understanding like that I had to create I guess be stand up to the things that I didn't really want. And so I think a lot of the lessons that I learned from theirs just made me think of ways to improve and get better.
Yeah, yeah.
Be more comfortable like expressing myself emotionally. Like I wasn't able to articulate everything outside. So a lot of times I just stayed in my head and stayed to myself. I still tend to have like a little bit of that habit even
Mm,
now in this relationship, but I'm better.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
um and then I think also just pulling back, just going out and understanding how to like create nice dates or creating nice experience for her, or even having a community for us to go into and just like be seen. Like you always talk about when you go into a restaurant, like everyone knows your name, like cheers. So even those things I didn't really have.
Mhm.
Um, and then just being in my head a lot, just the belief systems,
Yeah.
uh, like
Could
what I
you?
thought about myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, could you elaborate on that? You said that you had some inner games, some inner things that came up where it got you to the point where you're like, okay, maybe I should see someone about this. If you feel comfortable, like, what were some of those things? What were some of those inner game beliefs?
A lot of it would have to do with anxiety, I think, like just inner turmoil within me, and
Mm,
just not being comfortable, not being at peace. Uh, I think also healing a lot of I had a lot of criticism, I think, growing up. When you grow up in like the way I did, I think my parents were really hard on me. So that became self-criticism and like self-doubt and I wouldn't say self-hate, but like just self-doubt and like not really like having compassion for myself, not having patience for myself, always being hard on myself and not celebrating the things that I like. So I think it was just figuring out who I was. I remember my therapist, the first question he asked me is like, "Who are you?" And I
mm.
was like stumped by it. You know, I didn't
Wow.
really know how to say it. I'm like, "Well, I do things," but he's like, "Who are you?" Like, who are you besides the things that you do? And it like blew my mind. It was like way over my head at that time. I didn't really know how to answer the question. I
Yeah,
mean, we
yeah,
went on to things like basic things like meditation and kind of being comfortable with yourself and journaling. So it's just the basic emotional like traits or just being able to express that I just wasn't good at. I was a person who just went to work and then went out with my friends, but like these other characteristics, these soft skills, quote unquote, I
yeah.
just didn't have.
Yeah.
I think inside of me also there is a lot of well, I'm working on it, but like defensiveness, taking feedback wasn't really good. I would
Mhm.
get reviews from work or things, and I just would focus on like the negative thing rather than the positive.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think those are the major things. Two things in relationships that came up was being afraid of conflict. I
Yeah,
was always like, don't rock the boat,
yeah.
just like don't really express yourself, afraid of kind of making her feel bad. And that was the training that I got a little bit as a kid too.
Hmm.
Parents were a little bit overreactive or they're yelling, you want to be obedient or you want to like, fudge the truth. So they don't get mad at you. So then you parentalize your partner the same way. So I
Yeah.
think that was another thing. And there's a concept that you told me while we were working. It's called being nice versus kind. And
Hmm.
a lot of times I don't like to say nice guy, but like I had those characteristics of that,
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
um, the kindness was not really there yet in terms of like expressing myself, saying the honest things, and being open of what you're feeling, even if it hurts their feelings. And I felt like that was the major trait. I just wasn't expressive, and then I wasn't really able to articulate things because I was just dodging and I was ducking and I was playing small. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So it sounds so were these the things that got you to the point where you were like, listen, something needs to change. Like you notice, it sounds like you were noticing you were being very critical of yourself, that you were having trouble, expressing yourself. Like you didn't want to rock the boat. Like it sounds like you had that self realization, and you also noticed that yeah, you can talk with friends, but you were missing those soft skills as well. And were those a thing that made you go, you know what? Let me pop over the computer. Top 10 New York bestsellers. Was that the thing?
well, it wasn't Neil's thing was more of like popping over the computer was more of like just dating, like just getting good at like going out on dates and things. But
Ah,
the evolution of well, there's two things. So like Neil's thing was like dating and getting good. So I was able to go on dates, but then I was getting into relationships and these same things came up over and over. So I could
okay.
get into a relationship and then I got the dating part right, decent, not great, but decent. But then once I got in relationships, there was this other part where I couldn't express myself. I was really worried about, perfectionism or even am I doing this good enough or will she like me? And just like really just doubt, a lot of doubt, I think. And so,
Mhm.
um, also like scarcity mindset, just like I don't really know, I'm getting a little bit older. I'm kind of in my early to mid 30s. My friends are getting married, so will I have to just kind of settle for things, or will I just not, this is kind of what it is and this is the pattern. So I just saw myself acting in very similar ways in multiple relationships, and that's when the truth came out, and the truth like flipped a switch in me in terms of like looking at yourself and looking at all those things and looking at a relationship in a different way. And then so that's what actually like flipped me to go into to working with you. And then I saw like, okay, well, I have to even work on dating because I don't even have that correct as well. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a whole like inner healing journey, and then
Mm-hmm.
all the way backwards to like dating. So,
Yeah.
because like I know you always say this all the time, like you can work on the exterior, and which I did for a couple years. You can have the nice clothes, but then if you don't have the interior at the same rate, then you can't do it. It's like having a nice house and you could put paint on it, and it's like trash inside. So
Yeah.
I always felt like that wasn't aligned, and so
Mm.
that those two worlds were
Yeah.
trying to be symbiotic.
Yeah. So you mentioned that then you realized that even dating, that needed to be turned around too. So what were some of the biggest challenges or like frustrations that you face while dating?
um Small marketplace in my mind. I felt like I we had talked about this like when I first started working with you in terms of context. I felt like I needed a certain context to like really ask people out. So something as like going out to a lounge or going out to anywhere and approaching people wasn't like a big thing for me to do. So
It
if
was
I
or it wasn't?
was not
Okay, okay.
that was not. So like if I had a group of friends and I kind of knew someone, it'd be okay. Or if I could go online, I'll be like a Twitter thug. Like I could do it that way. I could take the shot that way. But again, it's the same principle. Like I don't want to take that big pie on my face. So dating was created like a smaller market where if it was safe, I would do it. But if it was like high stakes, like going out to a club or a lounge or somewhere where I thought was really pretty, or just even stopping her on the street, it wasn't good. So um, just by drinking that pool, I just felt like I was dating people. I would have marginal success. I would go on dates, but then I wasn't really interested, or it just fell flat, or I just wouldn't be able to show myself in the way that I wanted to. So I felt like there was in my head, there was always a category of where I was supposed to be, and then I was playing below it. So
Mm.
it's hard to say because I guess on the surface I had results. I would go on dates, I could take people out on multiple dates, I could get in a relationship, but to me, I didn't equate that with success. To the point where, like in my mid to late 30s, everyone's talking about like getting married, and then I'm like, oh, I don't know, like, will I have to settle? And all those things came up, and so I just said I got to really focus on like there's something that other people know that I'm not doing, and that's what I
Yeah.
got to figure out.
Yeah. You said that there was like a level of success that you were not hitting. And it's
Mm-hmm.
funny because I feel like we cracked this open in Vegas when we had the boot camp and we
Yeah.
were at one of the places, but I had that conversation. So can you tell me a little bit what success, when you mentioned success that you were quote unquote supposed to be at, what
Yeah.
was it in your head that you weren't hitting that you thought this is where I should be?
This is what came up like multiple times while I was working with you because I live in LA. So in LA, you see like the stars, you see people in Hollywood, you see people go out to the clubs, you see like on TV. So the level of success I had in my head is like I could go in a venue and pretty much get anyone. So I thought like I could walk in the place and just own the place. And I thought like there was a certain elite status. When you go to LA, there's, the place like the Bungalow in Santa Monica, or even West Hollywood. And so you get into these clubs and you're supposed to be there's like beautiful women. And so I was like, I could get like girls online, but these are the elite of the elite. And that's what I felt like I had to be. I had to be in these places where people was trying to be seen. And much much like Vegas, like supercharged, like Cosmo, those type of people. And so I was trying to force myself into like the quote unquote popular crowd. And I think a lot of it comes from back in high school where I would look at these people and I would say, oh, they're so cool, they're so charismatic, and I am not able to be that. And so therefore I am lacking and I need to be there to be able to reach the level of self-acceptance or whatever it is. That's where I measured success. And I felt like it was something that probably no human being could do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see it on TV and you could see, but people don't live their life. What I've learned is that people don't actually live their life like that. Like no one goes to club 7 days a week and takes home like everyone or dates everyone or just kills it with everyone. I mean, the part of the game is like you're not going to be a match for everyone and you're not going to be perfect and you're not going to have always the best things to say. And even if you could do all that, like you won't be great in relationships. So I just thought perfectionism was like the biggest thing that I was fighting against.
What do you mean? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Like if I didn't meet these standards, then I am less then I am not I'm less than or I'm not at that standard or I'm not I would just say I was just not at that standard. I just feel like I'm not good enough, I guess you could say. And so that is what I was seeking and hoping and wishing.
And when you're talking about the standard, talk about the standard of being able to walk into any place, be hella charismatic, get anyone, like
Mhm.
that was a standard.
That was a standard. Yeah.
Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, dog. I
Own
see.
the room, you know, just be like, just take over. Everyone know your name. Just yeah, just know the manager. High five with everyone. Just like a movie. It should just be highlights. It should be a highlight reel every day.
Yeah, I feel that. It's funny because we're this year in the Red Velvet Group, we are doing the year of the most interesting man. And one of the things about it is owning the room. So it's funny you say that because it is definitely possible. Like we've done it before, you've seen it happen before, but how it happens is not what people think. It's
Nah,
not, yeah, it's not how people think. It's actually a quiet, non-flashy way, but the end result is you end up owning the room. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that. And so, one of the things that I want to talk about is definitely our time working together one on one because that was a marvelous time to see you, bro. Like it was fantastic. So one of the things with Sapan and I that we would do is I would have him go out to Target, the mall, and he would go and talk to people. And then he would have headphones in or his AirPods. And I would listen in the conversation and give him advice and go back and forth. And I find it interesting. You can you can tell us more about what that was like. I want to give my 2 cents as like the coach on the other side. What was like witnessing and hearing you and watching you grow. But what was that like? So during the time that you went out, what were some of the things you were working on? What were some of the turning points during that time?
yeah. Well, I'll just say like first off, like going out and doing that felt like really humbling because I felt like in some ways it was going back to school or I always felt like at that age and at that time, since I had decent success, like why, like this is bad. This is what I should be learning at like 18, 19, or even 15. And so
Mm-hmm.
like I'm way behind. And so like this is bad like that. I have to go out and kind of relearn all this stuff. So I think just in that time, I had that doubt or I had that feeling or that mentality. Like I was very hard on myself, but I took it as what it was. When I was going out during that time, it like took me back to when I first started reading like all those books, and we worked on openers and just the basic things, and we even worked on like just saying hi and
Mm-hmm.
projecting your voice and posture and eye contact, like
Mm-hmm.
just those basic traits. And I found the power in just the simple stuff first.
Mm-hmm.
So just making eye contact, like you had told me an exercise where you're supposed to look at people's eyes and tell what eye color there are. So that it created like presence and awareness and those things. So it was like a symbiotic. I felt like why we worked so much together because it was similar philosophies in terms of like getting
Yeah.
that outer game stuff, but also the inner game healing. It was a Miyagi thing that you were doing the whole time,
Mm.
where it was really healing yourself, but it's through the mechanism of like talking to people
Mm.
or these challenges or these obstacles and becoming the legend that you see in your head and bring it to reality, whatever that manifestation is for you. But I
Yeah.
remember like the first time we did it, I went to like the local Albertsons and I was like, okay, I got to get all hyped up. And I was like super nervous and just like, what is it going to be? And I'm put on the spot now. And
Mm.
you're like, hey man, just breathe, like calm down. So I walk in the store and then you're just like, okay, we're gonna do, I don't know if it was like a 2 minute or 5 minute timer. We're just gonna go say like hi to everyone.
Yeah.
And you know, and even that, I was like, okay, that's easy. But like you have to be able to project your voice and all those things. And you were judging the way I say hi. Like you can't say hi, you gotta say hi, 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 like hi. I was like, dang man, this guy's like a stickler for everything. And so, and I just thought it was weird. I thought it was like, okay, I'm just saying hi to people. I don't really get the point of this, but okay. And
Mm.
then we worked our way up to eye contact, and then openers. And so we went, at that time it was during COVID. So we had like two possibilities,
Mm.
Target and the grocery store.
Yeah.
So I remember you had worked with someone else before and you said like something about a quinoa opener, like
Mhm.
where's the
Yeah.
quinoa,
Yeah.
whatever. And I thought like this is random. Like I was so logical. I don't need quinoa. Why the hell am I asking someone for quinoa? But
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was the point of the action. The action was just to open to talk to people. But
Hmm.
like in my head, just struggling with like if I don't really have a question, then that seems inauthentic. And if it's inauthentic, I can't recite these lines. It felt like even acting when I was doing it. But since you were there, I was forced into that realm. I think that's what like pushed me.
Yeah.
Whereas before, when I was on my own, it was like if I don't have like the perfect line or the perfect opener, if it wasn't the perfect scene, then I can't do it. And what I
Mhm.
learned from you is that it doesn't have to be perfect. You create the frame, you create the context, and it happens. So we worked on basic things like where's the quinoa, where's the applesauce, where's the milk, and then we worked all the way up to Target where luckily it was Christmas time, and then or like holiday season. I remember we went to Target and we went to Trader Joe's, and I was like, thank God, okay. So I got a holiday, like I got to get something for my friends' kids, and so we would go to the toy section,
Mhm.
and then I was able to just get responses like, hey, I need to get some toys, what are some recommendations? And I thought that was super authentic. And then it would just open up to other things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you had
Yeah.
called me the, huh?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I said you had called me like the king of transitions. And this was probably from my time in improv and also just kind of working on like awareness and meditation and presence. But I would say the line of the opener, but I wasn't really like I didn't care about the answer. I was looking at like what it was and what I could bring out in them and what I could transition this conversation to something that I really liked. And you had also taught me about curiosity, like really like who is this person? What's interesting about them? What can you find out about them? And once I kind of tapped into that, that's what really popped everything open because it was like I could do these little openers, but the opener is not the really thing. The opener just leads me to buys me time to get to the interesting part, what
Mhm.
they call like the hook point. And so once you get that, that's when the game is on. And I felt like even when I was young, going back to like what I had expectations of, I felt like you could hit the hook point in 3 seconds. That's what I thought. But that
Mhm.
was nobody does that. Like sometimes it just takes time to marinate a conversation, and sometimes it could even start really bad and learn how to manifest that into something good.
Yeah.
But so we started there, and then we worked all the way up to other things like storytelling, giving value. We had worked on like things like giving compliments to people, and that was more easy for me. That was like more authentic, like just giving someone a good compliment or talking about their shirt, and then transitioning to other topics, and those felt like super easy. And then we went into storytelling to even like one time you could probably tell the story better than me, but I don't remember a lot of it. But I think it was at Target. I had like these beads on, and
Mhm.
this I was talking to the one of the employees, and then she was like, "Oh, those are interesting." I said, "Oh, I use that for meditation,"
Yeah.
and then I taught her about breathing. They had like something in
Yeah.
terms of just calming your nerves down. Everyone was like really nervous at that time too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
stimulates the parasympathetic system, and that kind of helps you calm down and get your stress down. And then we got into India where my parents were from, and I was
Yeah.
like, that blew my mind because I was like, I just met this person. I asked like where the lotion is, and now we turned into like a whole conversation. And when I learned that, it started to become even greater than I thought when I first started this, where it was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna get people's numbers, or like I'm gonna take them out and be super charismatic and attractive. It's like you can really connect with people. And I
Yeah.
learned that like connecting with people, and that was my like superpower. Like I
Yeah.
one-on-one interactions more so than kind of owning the whole club is what was good, and that's what changed.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what was the turning point? Because you mentioned at one point it was like I'm just saying lines. It doesn't feel real. And so it sounds like the minute you realize, I mean, again, I'll let you tell in your words, but from what I'm hearing, it sounds like one of the big turning points for you was the moment you found out you can connect with strangers, that you can really get people to open up. And that for you, that it sounds like you're a person that thrives on like real connection and real conversations. That once you figure out how to do that, it sounds like everything changed. I mean, you tell me, like, what do you think would say what's the turning point, the part where things clicked for you?
That was it. That was it. I think, especially, if we had to remember it, we were behind a mask. Like I was saying stuff behind a mask, and so I even use that as a like I can people can't see me, and so
Mm,
like, I have to really just use my voice and personality and everything else. I can't use clothes. I can't use it. I go out in joggers and everything just to like really push it because I wanted that personality.
yeah,
And when I found out like that it wasn't about context and it was just like what I could say and in a basic place like Target and Sprouts or Trader Joe's, like I can have like a deep conversation with new people like over and over and over and over again to like the mall. Then I said, wow, like you put me in another place where I have context and I have other things at my power I could use, then I can really do some things. But I needed to have everything scaled down completely and to know that like I could just walk into any place and connect with people and have like real conversations. And that's what changed for me. And then I stopped thinking about like highlight reels and I thought like I just want to connect with people. I just want to get to know people. It wasn't even about like maybe other people were about like getting dates and numbers and things, which I could do, but I felt like I just wanted to have a real connection. I wanted to heal that emotional connection and really bond with people and people see who I was and also learn about other people. Um, I could do that in my practice as a physical therapist, but I felt like I was using the crutch of like patient, doctor, patient, whatever
yeah,
in the
yeah,
workplace.
yeah,
Now it's like outside of there, my own personality to really bring that on, like really changed everything. And
yeah.
then we got to emotional connection. Then we got to banter, and it was like a whole different game. Then that's when I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So it sounds like, yeah. Um, man. So yeah, so it sounds like, at the beginning, like yes, we were walking, with training wheels, like why am I saying hi? Why am I doing this? But then, it was just to get you to the point to just achieve the most important thing, which is to be able to hit the hook point, where the
Mm-hmm.
point where people want to talk with you, the point where people enjoy talking with you. And when you get to that point, now all the other things just make the conversation even sweeter. The storytelling, the flirting, the banter. And it was hilarious because I remember with you, and we were talking about this before we started, is that you would have these marvelous conversations with people. And I specifically remember that conversation with the woman in Target, and how she was talking about your necklace and how she wants to visit India. And I remember just hearing the sound of her voice and how engaged she was. And I'm on the phone going, yes, let's go. That's my God. That's my God. Yes, win. And then afterwards, you were like, I mean, I think I did good. It was all right. And it was driving me crazy because it was that self criticism, that doubt. Because from the outside point of view, what I was hearing was you started a conversation with someone who just asked a regular question, and then you took her from a neutral tone of voice to a more engaged, high tone of voice, where she's sharing personal information about herself, showing interest in who you are and your culture. And it was out of nothing. You created that from scratch. And so that's why I was so geeked out about it. But then you on your hands, like that self criticism was just like, oh man, like it's not. I don't know. I don't know. Um, I don't know if I got anything like this. And so my question is then is that well first before let me ask a question. First I want this. So during that phase, because you've been through different phases, like your evolution has continued to grow. So during that phase right now, when you were first dating and stuff like that, your and before we start working together, your initial goal, what you wanted to achieve was what?
Was just be able to connect. I think it was really about connecting with people and self-acceptance. I think just being more comfortable with my skin, being comfortable
Mm,
with my identity, being comfortable like who I was, being able to exude what was within me, like, and show that to people on a more consistent basis. Um, and it was weird because like in my practice, I'm able to show that really well because the context of like that they're supposed to quote unquote listen to me, or I could show that personality, but like in a neutral context, I wasn't able to do that, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's what the divide was, I think, because I could show it in flashes, but then when I worked with you, there'd be like sometimes where I couldn't do it, or sometimes where I couldn't really get up to that area, or I felt like I have to like put on or be this person, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's what really was a driver. So I'm probably different from other people who were working with you because I wasn't really motivated by like getting dates and things. Like I was okay with just being like, if I get a conversation and if I could get them to that hook point and I can get that consistently,
Yeah,
good. If I can make friends, good. Like then I can work with that because I knew like once I get that, everything else will fall in line.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I guess I was working a little bit backward because I got you when I was a little bit older. So
yeah.
if I got you in my early 20s where I hadn't dated people, it would have been a little different. So I dated people, had relationships, but I had in my mind it was decent success. It wasn't like great success, but I was able to do it. But I think what I had to do is break it all the way down because it was on a faulty foundation. Like I got it
Um,
different
yeah, yeah.
different
You say you were able
reasons.
to do it before, not to tell you. You say you were able to do it before. What was
Yeah.
missing?
That je ne sais quoi, how they say that flavor, that spice to it. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
It was good, but I knew that what was missing, it was like a bland flavor. I could do it, but it wasn't where I wanted it to be or where I thought like I could be. It was in a place where I was giving back to it, maybe because I wasn't giving out that stuff. It was just average, I guess you could say. That was missing. It was an average relationship. It was humdrum. And that was probably the way I showed up. That's kind of how what came back to me. A lot of times the universe kind of gives you whatever you put out there. So
True, true,
um,
true, true.
it was
And
basically average. If I had to summarize it, it was average. And
average,
I,
okay.
I thought there was a life for me that was supposed to be like elite, above average, the quote unquote red velvet life. That's what was missing.
Oh, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get
Yeah.
into that. And so you said something earlier too that being the legend you see in your head. And so for you, when you got to the point where you learn how to reach the hook point, how to have deep conversations with people over and over and over again, was that the legend you saw in your head, or was it something else?
That was it. That
That
was
was
it. Yeah, that was it. It was very simple. It was like when I was able to just connect with people and people were able to see me and I was able to show my personality to them and I was also able to leave them a little bit better than when I found them. I think that's what it was. Even if it was a 5 minute conversation to a 20 minute to like maybe even a year relationship or a year friendship, like just being memorable, being someone who like they actually got to know the person that I was inside. And
yeah.
that's what made it legendary. So I felt like that's what I wanted, and I wanted to do that consistently.
I
That's what
love
made it true.
yeah, yeah, buddy. I feel that. I love that. And it's funny. I do not tell people that I work with this. It's one of those things where because you've done it so many times and you understand people, Like, when guys, come up to me and say, Papa, I want to do X, Y, and Z. I want to be able to do this. I'm like, fine, boom, we're going to make it happen. But in the back of my head, what I've come to find is that what people really want, and especially guys, especially in the dating realm, is to overcome their demons, overcome that voice in their head that says they can't do it. They want to just be able to have the feeling I can do this, that what I see in my head, I can execute in real life. And I want to say 80% of the time, maybe even more, getting the phone number or anything like that a date, like while it's great, but it's a fulfilling, like you go home happy when you're just able to like, yo, it's a stranger, I'm gonna connect with them. There's another one, I'm gonna connect with them and have a deep conversation. Cool, I just built a new relationship out of scratch. And I think just overall, which just speaks to the whole thing about Red Velvet. And you mentioned it was a Mr. Miyagi thing where, yeah, you learn how to talk to people, but you're also working on inner stuff. I think the reason why I love what we do here and the whole real thing behind Red Velvet is that essentially using dating as a vehicle to overcome and heal inner stuff.
Yeah.
Because because it's challenges. I mean, you want to talk to women, fears are gonna come up. You're gonna doubt yourself. You're going to be like, holy shit. And then if it doesn't go well, what does it mean about me? In order to get the women you want, you have to evolve or tap into another side of yourself, the great side of yourself. You're gonna have to lose certain qualities, the ones that didn't serve you, the ones that kept you small. So you had to lose those and embody the ones that make you big and expressive and connective. And that's why I love what we do, because essentially that is what's happening. You are becoming a better man. You're, using the vehicle of self-improvement, which I love. And that's definitely what I saw with you. And so after that, because I know you went through a couple different phases, and we'll get into that too as well.
What's up, big guy? I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope you got a lot out of it. There's lots of little nuggets in there, and I can tell you right now that there's more coming in episode 2, in volume 2 of this interview. You can catch it the next one coming up next week, next Monday. We'll have that live and ready for you. In the meantime, in the between time, try to implement some of the things that you heard, or if you like, hey, write me, hey, Pablo, I really enjoyed this part, I really enjoyed this part. I would love to know the feedback. But more importantly, I want you to take whatever epiphany that you had and apply it to your real life, because that is where the magic happens. Till then, thanks so much for sticking around. I'm Pablo. I appreciate you listening to the Red Velvet podcast. Stay velvet. I'll check you out on the next one. Later.